Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest rendition of Tales from Outer Space. Taken from the subreddit HFY. All the relevant links will be down below. And as always, I hope that you enjoy, and if you do, please consider supporting the channel. Now, on to the science fiction. Retail Reputation, written by Haenir. Krevik nervously shuffled into the boardroom, where a small collection of higher-ups waited for him. The intern quickly took one empty seat at the table, presumed to be for him. "Intern Krevik," began one of the managers. "Is Krevik, actually," squeaked the intern. The manager eyed him coldly. "Intern Krevik," he continued, "we've been pleased with the progress of your studies on humanity and their positive effect on our business. As such, we have decided to send you on yet another interview trip." Krevik groaned internally. Interview trips, as they were dubbed, were notorious amongst the company. It usually meant sending employees to strange, barely habitable slabs of rock and telling them to try and hire a certain amount of that rock's current inhabitants, with no bonus to pay. Of course, Krevik had already been on 3 so far, all to planets or have facilities with large human populations. "Do you know of Orion 11? Asked another manager, interrupting Krevik's musings. Krevik gulped. Orion 11 was your standard fare garden world, except for the part where it was part of the Empire of Dahal. Saying that the Dahalians were violent would be an understatement. And if one of them heard you say that, they would most likely rip you in half and use your blood to compose a well-written official denunciation of your family line. Once a galactic year, every world under Dahalian control took part in something called the Day of Reclamation. This was an empire-wide holiday during which every member of the Dahalian society attempted to reclaim the blood of their enemies, or people they didn't like, or their friends, or that one person who coughed without covering their orifices. Essentially, it was chaos for one day. Then society switched back to standard operations. We have been informed that there is a particular pocket of humanity in the capital city of Dahalosia. We would like you to make contact. With hazard pay, of course." Krevik barely suppressed his shudder. If the board of directors was offering hazard pay to a lowly intern, things must be especially violent. "Now, private security will ensure your arrival at the facility in question. It is up to you to make your way from there." Krevik decided that the brutal, terrifying sprint to what looked like a retail establishment could have been worse. Of the original 12 members of the company's security team, only 4 remained. Those 4 were soaked in gore. Blast marks scarred their armor, and they looked about as ragged as Krevik did. Inside the establishment, it seemed as though he had stepped into another world. Aisles upon aisles of merchandise stretched out before him, sometimes devolving into a maze of smaller stands and displays. Unconcerned shoppers meandered through the linoleum walkways, sometimes pausing to look at an item that caught their eye. Soft, incredibly boring music whispered out from the speakers located somewhere in the ceiling. All in all, the interior of the store seemed entirely unconcerned with the chaos that raged just outside their automatic doors. In fact, the only thing that reminded Krevik of just the kind of trouble that he was in was located at each entrance. The walls immediately beside each door were piled high with what looked like bags of, something heavy. The displays directly in front of the doors had been converted into makeshift guard posts, each outfitted with a mounted, multi-barreled gun of some sort, and a guard in highly advanced power armor behind it. As Krevik and his guards entered the store, the barrels of the gun began to spin up. "You there!" bellowed the guard, his voice bearing the usual deep, imposing inflection that you could find in most human soldiers. "Drop your weapons and state your purpose, or I'll be happy to blast you back to where you came from." Krevik threw his hands in the air immediately. Hazard pay didn't cover being blown to bits. After a few tense moments, his security team put down their weapons, which were then collected by 2 more humans in power armor. I'm Krevik," the intern stuttered out, mesmerized by the spinning of the barrels. "I was sent here to interview several of your personnel. The corporation I work for thinks that humans could be an excellent asset to add to our employee roster." A long moment passed, and then the gun stopped spinning up. "Go back down this path," stated the guard, gesturing with one armored hand. "Past the children's section and go to customer service. The manager will be there. Speak with him." Krevik and the remains of his security detail walked down the indicated path, stunned at the apparent normality of the situation, and how calm each of the humans were. In fact, it seemed like the only shoppers were human. They would pick out their items, bring them to the register, pay, and then walk outside under the guard of at least 2 soldiers. Not a single one seemed overly concerned. Once the group had reached the customer service desk, they approached a rather bored-looking employee, a woman no older than 20. She distractedly scrolled through web pages on some sort of tablet, idly chewing gum. Krevik slowly reached out and tapped the bell that sat on top of the counter. The woman lazily brought her head up, looking over the ragged group with distant eyes. "Yeah," she said. We were told by the guard at the front to speak to a manager." Krevik's voice was barely a whisper. If this particular human was bored by the events transpiring around her, then she must be terribly imposing. The intern did not wish to earn her ire. The woman merely chewed her gum for a moment, then pressed a small button on the intercom. "Hey, Brandon, got a group of Xenos here that were told to come and see you." Her job apparently done, she went back to reading, or skimming her articles. Moments later, an incredibly average human emerged from the back room. He was dressed quite snappily, wearing a suit and tie. Krevik could see the handgun holstered at his waist, though. "Ah, gentlemen," he said warmly, "what can I do for you?" Krevik was at a loss for words. His species was never terribly good at dealing with conflict, but this went above and beyond anything that he had experienced. This human was just acting like it was another day on the job. Krevik started out the same explanation that he'd given the guard up front. The manager, Brandon, nodded all the while. "An interesting proposition for certain," he said. "The only issue is, we're quite invested here. As you can tell, we have a reputation to uphold for the human population of Dahalosia, you see. We haven't lost a single one of our kinsmen in 5 years. Safest shopping center in the sector." Brendan gestured towards the guard Krevik met on the way in. "Jameson over there actually has the highest kill count, hovering right under 200. We had to move him to perimeter security instead of escort crew just to give the others some time to catch up." What? "Oh yeah," said Brandon. "It's a little game we play. At the end of the day of reclamation, we tally up who has the most takedowns, and I give them a nice bottle of whiskey. Jameson won the first 3 years in a row. so I asked him to give the others a chance. Nice guy, really. His wife is a fantastic cook. How do you handle all of this? Asked Krevik. The young intern was incredulous. This, Brandon said. Oh, this is nothing. Here, walk with me to the food court. Let me tell you about something from back home. Now, on Black Friday. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.